January 2nd, 1987, and we're here with Grandpa, Great-Grandpa, and Great-Grandma Rasmussen, and they're going to tell you about themselves and some memorable experiences in their life, and then bear their testimony. So I'll turn the time first to Grandma.
To Grandma? Well, that's pretty good for her to be
good
first.
talking, Dad.
And I'm sure that the first thing I would say is that Doug is a very special grandson, and his wife is a very special granddaughter. And their two little children are special in our lives. And only Doug could get us to sit down and think in a situation like this, because it's rather confusing for us at this age. But I've had a good companion for these many years, and Ward and I are about the same age and 80 years old, and I think that it's only due to the children to know just a few things personal about our lives, because life in that length of time has changed. Now, I remember very distinctly when I was little, I thought I never knew there was anything wrong in the world or anything wrong with us or with my family. I thought that everything just was a fairy tale. But after all these years, I find out that life is real, it's earnest, that faith, hope, and charity makes up the main category, and that we have to fit into this life. We have to take things as they come, because it's a schooling. It's something that we just can't feel like that we know it all, ever. And it seems like now that we're at 80 years old, that we have more time to look back over the years and think of our younger days when Father and Mother were active and we were all active. Like I say, we thought it was a fairy tale, but it's a reality. It's beautiful, and there's lots to learn, there's lots to do. The only thing that you've got to do is to think right. Get on that straight and narrow path. We hear about that straight and narrow path. It is a reality, and it's very necessary. When we were small, we always thought it was just a cap on our heads and a sleigh ride down the hill, and a nice little neighbor that would borrow the ice cream freezer. And then as you go on and you have your family, I think we were very fortunate to rear our family between the ages of the Indian uprisings and rock and roll. Not that I say anything about the Indian life nor the rock and roll life, but we were just in between those two generations. So that our life rearing the family was very, very successful as far as we were concerned, and as far as they seemed to plan. We appreciate good, healthy children and good, healthy minds and bodies with all of them. Now, as far as experience goes, we all have our experiences as children. Some of us are a little easier to handle, but we all are our parents' responsibility, and the parents have a responsibility to us, which makes it very, very choice. We had plenty of home evenings in my time. We always were popping corn and always singing songs. And when Dad and Mother were with their family, I never knew there was any trouble until I got married and started having family home. And then I looked back on the years and could see that it was a kind of a continual line of study and work and understanding. Now, as far as funny things that happen, there's always funny things when you're a child, but at the same time, that's not any different any time. We just, all of us have to go that certain way on life. I can't think of any special time when it was just as funny. I think when Ward and I got married, when I think of New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, I can remember him being at one drugstore in one town and the same drugstore in the next town, thinking there was only the one place, and spending a lot of the time waiting at the drugstore for the hour to come when he would arrive. He finally did arrive. By the time we got to New Year's Eve, we were pretty well exhausted. But we've also all had lots of horn blowing and lots of paper throwing and cap wearing and everything. I think the other night, just right now in my life, was an eye-opener, because when I was in the mission field, it was back to God and Barlow's day, and back to the square in New York. And when we went, why, the women and the men were all the choicest of New York, the very wealthiest. And when we watched the television the other night for New Year's Eve, it was completely changed. Instead of having a time to dine and dance, people were jumping and yelling and throwing their hands. So I can say to the teenagers, don't become discouraged, but do, again, learn to think right and do right. Be bold when it comes to joining the church and working in the church, because your blessings come from your Father in heaven. Now, all my life I've been a teacher in some capacity, but I think perhaps the greatest thing is when I found out that the Book of Mormon really does answer your questions. When our prophets here in Revelator said, concentrate more on the Book of Mormon. While I've been down this time with a blood clot in my leg, I've had plenty of time to think and to read every word. Not just miss the ones that you couldn't pronounce, but to try to read every word of the Book of Mormon. And I find out that the Lord's been patient with us. He's been kind to us. But I don't think he would be willing to start another world. So we might just as well take the one that we're responsible for and make use of it and do the best that we can in this life. I remember that singing songs to certain children that they'd only go to sleep on certain songs. Now I probably even forgotten a lot of those little songs, but they were handed down to me from my grandmother. And we'll all of us appreciate our experiences with our grandparents and those that had a chance in life. And my whole world right now is to leave to my family a testimony that the gospel is true, that Jesus is the Christ, and that Joseph Smith is a prophet, and that he did restore the church, and we have an opportunity to prove ourselves and become something worthwhile. And it's not easy. It's just not easy at all, but it's certainly worthwhile. So and I certainly frown on divorce. No wonder the Bible says don't have divorce. It causes more heartaches and more trouble with families. So don't ever think of try to work it out. Try to understand. Take time to converse with each other and love each other and to tell them about it. Don't be bashful. Just come right out and say, I think you're the ideal person in the world. And it'll prove itself in the long run. But when it comes to reading the Book of Mormon and knowing what those people went through at that time, I can see that this generation is no different than them. But it's all in our thinking capacity and in our thinking straight. And I would say that would be the greatest thing that I would leave to my family, is in this life, to take time out to know yourself and to know your companion and know your children. Take time to live, not be searching constantly for something that's in the future. Not searching for something that isn't possible for you to have, and maybe the Lord don't want you to have it. So take time out to ask him if you should. And if you'll be patient and kind and true, your Lord will always answer and give you a peace of mind within your heart, whether it's right or not. Now, I think that that's about what I'd say now at the beginning anyway, so we'll turn the time over to Ward.
My experiences were kind of like Lucille. She lived in a small town in Holbrook, Idaho, and I lived in a small town in Ephraim. Now, in getting to the thought that I thought would be interesting to the young children, I remember the first time I was able to climb over a fence. Now, to you it may not seem like much, but to climb over that fence, seeing the big boys do it, finally finding that I could do it, was a big thrill. We had lots of horses down at Ephraim, and riding a horse. My dad would ride a horse, others would ride a horse, but when it finally came so that I could climb on a horse and ride a horse, was one of the greatest thrills of my life. And Christmas has always been a big thing in my life. We always had trees. We didn't do like they're doing now, pick up a tree from the lot. We went up in the canyon and cut a tree. And we had a little sleigh, and we'd bring the tree back on the sleigh and decorate it, not with fancy decorations. We'd make our own decorations out of paper, and cut little paper rings, and then make a ring out of it, and put popcorn on the string and have popcorn for the decorations. And they didn't have lights at that time, and we had little candles we put on the tree. And it was a great thing to go to bed at night and think that, oh, Santa Claus is going to come in the morning, and we'd stay awake half the night trying to think of the things that we're going to get, and waiting for the morning to come so we could get up and enjoy Christmas. And it was always a big thing. Now, when I was a little older, I was given a chance to mow hay. Well, when you're young, you see the others doing things, then find out that you can do things. We'd hitch up 2 horses on the mower, and then I was taught how to mow hay, and that was a big thing. And raking hay, and maybe it don't sound much to you, but to a young fellow growing up, getting new experience and trumping hay. And then later on I was able to pitch hay, and they were all great experiences. Then I remember my first bicycle. I was so thrilled to have a bicycle. I always rode a horse, and a horse is quite slow, and so when I got this bicycle, I couldn't ride it, but I got along the fence. And by holding on to the fence, I was able to learn to ride the bicycle. And then I could use the bicycle instead of the horse going down to irrigate and do a few of those things. And then the next thing was being able to go out in the barn and hunt the eggs. The chickens would hide their nests, and we'd crawl around and find these nests and find the eggs, and gee, that was a thrill. We'd come back with a whole bucket full of eggs, and maybe they were partly ready to hatch or from being there so long, but we just thought that was great to do this. And then, when I was quite young, my aunt and uncle, that was Aunt Nettie and Bob Cuff, they lived on a place down in Marysville. They both had to work, and so mother set me down to take care of the kids. And one experience was quite funny. I was talking to Adrian the other day about it. They had a shotgun. And so we would go out. There's had a lot of old cottonwood trees, and in those cottonwood trees would be magpies. So we got the idea, or I guess I got the idea, of going down and hunting magpies in this cottonwood grove. So going on the way down, I thought, well, I'd see if Adrian could shoot the gun. So I got it up to his shoulder and pulled the trigger and knocked him down. he still remembers his experience. And it's lucky I didn't kill the whole family, because I was very old. And then later on, Grandpa and Grandma was getting quite old, and they lived in Richfield. And every summer they send me down to take care of Grandpa and Grandma to get their groceries and to help Grandpa with his garden. He had always had a beautiful garden. And he'd have me weed and have me break up these chunks of dirt to make it smooth and nice. Then he had bees, and it was fun to see how he took those out of the hives and separated the honey from the wax, and that was quite an experience to me. And then getting a little older, when I came to Salt Lake, I met Lucille. Of course, I'd been in the Army and come back from the Army and was working out at Kennecott. They called it then the Smelters in Garfield. And there I worked there, and then coming up to Salt Lake, I went to a dance, and there I met Lucille, and it seemed like she stood out above all the girls that were in the dance. And so I was really thrilled to meet her, and our marriage our going together wasn't all just hunting preserves on pie. We had our outs and ins, and finally we decided to get married, and we got married in the Salt Lake Temple, and that was a big experience. And then the market, my first market, when they told me I had qualified to take a market, and I don't know, those things maybe wouldn't seem too great to anyone else, but to me it was a great call. And then Lucille and I decided, or Lucille did, I guess, talk to my bishop where I used to live, and they decided together to send me on a mission. Well,
Lucille and your bishop decided?
Well, Lucille and the bishop. they talked it over, then I got my call. Of course, my call was from the church headquarters, so they decided on where I was going to go and so forth. But this other was kind of prearranged. And then when I got in the mission field, I was there 5 months, and they called me into the office and put me over fairs and exhibits, priesthood work and Sunday school work and genealogy throughout the mission. So the balance of my mission, why I traveled, and the mission paid my traveling fare, so that relieved Lucille a little bit. But she had a hard time in keeping me there because they were having a rough time themselves. So that was a sacrifice that Lucille and her mother made, and keeping me on the mission. And I didn't hardly realize how it was until I got home and found out their situations. But then I met Lucille in Denver after the mission was over, and we had some dances and dinners, and it seemed good to be together again. Then our first home was on 33rd South and 5th East. I remember when we was buying the home, the people that owned the home, they had a cabinet there. It was kind of like Smith's. It was that type of a looking cabinet, and they had rabbits on it. And I thought that was really something, to have their own rabbits and to have our own home, and we did enjoy that. And then Martha came along, and when Martha was going to be born, it was quite a hard thing for Lucille, and I couldn't imagine. How a child could be born, how that was possible, and it worried me. It worried me, and when the doctor came, and she had a hard birth, but the baby came, and I was so thrilled. I went up and down the street telling everybody how wonderful it was, and that it was great for me and great for Lucille, and we were very happy with Martha. And then later on, Joan came, and then Lucille and Ward B. And when they said Ward was a boy, I couldn't believe it. They had to show me. We'd had 3 girls, and I didn't think think it was possible for us to have a boy. But we did. And then we went down to Richfield, opened up a market of our own, and we did very well there. And then Lucille's mother was having some problems, so we had to sell her market, come back so Lucille could take care of her mother. And then so that brought us back to Salt Lake again, and then we went back to Safeways, and then down to Provo, to Hayward Market. And I had one market there that I ran, and then I bought and supervised the second market. And we had a good business. We just took over, it seemed like almost the whole town. Safeways was so worried about us, they even moved into the mortuary. It was next to Hayward, see if they couldn't get some of their business back. And then I got acquainted with the supervisor of Safeways, and he still wanted me to come back to Salt Lake. He said I would come to Salt Lake, why he would give me a good market, and he would really see that I had a good opportunity. So Lucille and I would move back to Salt Lake again, and this time we did stay with Safeways for quite some time, and then later on we went to Dan Gardner's and worked there. Then we got a market of our own, and we had 2 markets of our own, and that was a great experience to us. It was rather hard work, but the children, Martha learned a lot about the meat market. Joan learned about the meat market. Lucille and Ward B, they were all good helpers. So with the Lucille mother, and she opened up a little restaurant along with the market, and with the 4 children, why we had a good thing of it. And they made cube steaks, and they made sausage, and they did any other kind of work. And they really turned out to be good workers. Now, Lucille and I were getting along in age now. We're happy with our grandchildren. We have 35 grandchildren, and what is it,
27.
27
With
great-grandchildren.
about 3 coming up.
27 great-grandchildren and 3 coming up. So we feel like we have a good heritage, and we love our family. We are very proud of them. There's not one of them that smokes or drinks or on dope, and to realize that they all have good, healthy bodies, and they're mentally awake and good students. It makes you feel good to see what Martha and Ray have done with their boys, and what Joan and Park has done with their children, and Lucille and Jerry, what they're doing with their children, and Ward is having a good time with his children. He has them come spend summers with him, and they're very helpful and very bright, and they're getting along real well. That's about all we have to say, and I do have a testimony of the gospel. I love the gospel. I know that our Father in heaven and our Son Jesus Christ are human beings. They have been through the world like we're going through, and they're resurrected and going on like we have an opportunity if we're worthy. We have a mother in heaven that to meet us again when we go back. And all these things are great thoughts in our minds to realize how natural it is, how the world that we came from is a great place. And we lived there many, many years. Then we come here of our own will, and I don't know how much we had choosing our parents, but as it was, why, if we did, if we didn't, why, we're very happy with the parents that was given to us. And they sacrificed a lot in bringing us up. And this has been a good life. We have our home now that we're living in. Lucille and I are enjoying it. It's comfortable, and
We play checkers.
well, Lucille mentioned checkers. I have a lot of fun with the grandchildren and playing checkers. Played with Martha the other night. She beat me, but that's a good thing to get beat once in a while. All these things
Not
are
very
great,
often.
great, and I don't know really funny things. I guess there is funny things that happened throughout our lives. I remember having a few runaways when I was taking care of the horses. And one time that my two brothers and I were down getting some hay, and when we were coming back, the horses seems to tame, so my cousin was ahead of me, so I got off the wagon up with my cousin, all at once see the horses come running. So I jumped off at the back and grabbed the rein of one of the horses and pulled him into the fence and broke about 10 posts with the hub of the wagon before we got him stopped. But lots of things like that happen, but their experience, you're glad it's over with. And all these things that happen, we're glad they happen, and we're glad that we've grown up. And I wouldn't change my age for any age, because I know that when we're finishing our schooling and we're going on the other side that we're supposed to go. And Lucille and I were ready. We're not feeling bad about it, and we're happy that everything's going as it is. And thankful for all these things that Doug does for us, and for him coming up and bringing his equipment to take these thoughts and our pictures.
In my family, right?
Yeah.
In my family, I was the youngest of the 5. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I never remembered having a babysitter. I always went with older people and learned right off in the bat that things in this life are really of the spiritual nature. Consequently, I just naturally grew up as a spiritual person. Then when I went into my life and into the mission field, I had that spirituality and that desire to read and to understand the gospel. When Ward and I were first married, Martha was just a little girl. We took Grandpa Sweeten in, and he was one of the pioneers of 1847. And he had been blind for 20 years, and yet he lived to be that old, and he was in a wheelchair for many years. Then the mother's sisters would take turns taking care of him. And our turn happened to be right at the last days of his life, and that's when Martha was a little girl, and she'd play hide-and-go-seek with Grandpa while he was in the chair and play dolls with him. Dolls on one side of Grandpa, and then she'd run around and put the dolls on the other side of him, and he just loved the Martha. And then Marta'd pick him up and put him in the bathtub and give him a bath. He was so skinny. But he had a very good brain and very good mind right to the very last. But he died at our home. Ward and I and Martha was just a baby. Her just a little girl. She was not a baby. She was a little girl, so she entertained Grandpa very much. But I guess because of listening to the Spirit, I've had some wonderful experiences happen. One day I had a lady call me, and she was quite a talker. Of course, most genealogists are talkers. They have to be. And they have to be quite a bit for detail. So I had a feeling come over me that I should go to Martha's immediately, right now, and not listen to her. So I asked her forgiveness and hung up and hurried and got in the car and went down to Martha's and got there just in time that Raymond and I think his friend, even though they were scouts, were helping and trying to do the right thing. They had a pan of gasoline right in front of the fireplace, and they were cleaning that lawnmower to be a surprise to their dad and mother because they'd gone shopping. And as I approached the home, why, Darrell and Matthew came out and said, "Oh, Grandma, it does stink in our house." And the minute I entered that door, I could smell gasoline. So I just went right through and opened all the windows and the doors and went down, and here Raymond and this friend was cleaning this lawnmower in front of the open fireplace. Well, it took quite a while to get the fumes out of that home because it was so full, it was just ready for an explosion. And if it would have exploded, it would take in the whole house and the children and everything else. But I've had a lot of little interesting things happen like that made me feel like that I had to listen to the Spirit in order to get by. So if I ever seem like I'm preaching and getting a little bit bossy, it isn't a case of boss, it's a case of boldness, where I feel like that I've had so many experiences that I have listened to that little still small voice, and it's given me direction, and the direction's been the right way, that it's caused me to, even when I go to any ward, I have a great desire to bear my testimony in the church, because it just seems like that there's just no chance at all of our Father in heaven not loving us and not being right there to answer our problems. And I always felt like I had to go to him first and then try something else. But I've been quite prayerful in my heart. And I hope I maintain that, because it's a peace of mind that I recommend to any grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And oh, how we do love you all. Oh, how we do think that each one of you should be just nothing but the very best, because you've got so many blessings. You've got such good parents, such good homes, somebody who cares for you, and even though you sometimes just get a little off on that straight, narrow path, it's easy to get back on it again and go on and try to do the right thing. I sure ask God's blessings on each and every one of you. And when your cards come and we get a picture of you, you become more and more dear. The dust kind of accumulates once in a while. I think that's my weakness, is trying to keep rid of the dust. But I guess that's one of these worldly atmospheres that'll keep coming regardless. But I do bear my testimony very, very strong, because I know that it pays to live right.